Hey, fellow tennis nerds. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I've been to Kennelbach. And what's in Kennelbach? The headquarters. I've spent about 2 days, 2 full days in Kennelbach, meeting team head, talking about rackets, testing new strings and rackets and shoes. And I've had the best time. It's just been a really nice trip for a tennis nerd. And I really must say big thanks to all of you at Team Head for the nice reception. I really enjoyed talking to all of you. Antoine Hellereux, who picked me up at the airport and who took care and planned the whole trip. Big thanks to you, Antoine. Also, Dennis Fabian, you might have seen him on the channel. I've talked to him a few times on my podcast. He's very knowledgeable about strings, rackets, shoes and whatnot. He's been in the industry a long time. I also really love talking to the guys in the R&D department where you can get into molds and cross sections and the real nerdy stuff. I could talk to them for hours and hours. Ralf Schwenger and Stefan Mohr, just two brilliant guys with loads of experience in this industry and creating iconic racket models and products that I think a lot of you have tried and enjoyed. So super fun to talk to these guys. I remember me and Stefan went to the archive, for example, where they had all these head rackets throughout history and also from other brands. It was fascinating to see the factory and how kind of pieces of carbon rolls being manipulated and then baked into tennis rackets. It's a completely mind-boggling thing when you actually see it from just kind of like this small piece of carbon and then those layers being turned into that kind of layup and then into the racket through being baked in the mold. So Tennis Warehouse did a really awesome video about this, and I don't have the video equipment, nor did I have the time to do something amazing in terms of production, so I really recommend watching the head brandography video from Tennis Warehouse. The most exciting part of this trip was how much I learned about racket production, the whole planning phase, marketing, all the things that go into creating a racket, from research and development, planning, marketing, budgeting, design. I met all the different departments pretty much from head and got to discuss my knowledge, the stuff I've learned over the years as a consumer, as a guy who talks to a lot of other fellow tennis nerds, and to talk to them about their experience. Obviously, there's some guys there that have 15, 20 years designing tennis rackets, so they have some really strong passion and experience in the game, and I could learn so much from them. But I got to see it firsthand and I learned a lot. Met the guys who put in the work to bake the rackets, to customize them from the pros, to actually deal with the pros on a daily basis, all their requirements and needs. And I must say Head is pretty amazing at taking care of their professional players. I had no idea how much work that was and what kind of service they get, but I was very impressed. This led me to the question of like, are there anything magical that goes into the pro player racket compared to what's being sold in retail? I already had a feeling and an idea about this answer, but I obviously wanted to discuss this from my point of view. Having seen it, talking to the guys, it's really no magic in pro stocks. You probably already knew it. The big benefit when you're a pro player is that you get the rackets matched to your spec. So that is where the big benefit of being a pro is when it comes to rackets. Many cases you get them for free or at a low cost, and you get the exact model and specs you want. And that's where Head is very accommodating, even more than many other brands, I think, from the pro player point of view. So the issue for us recreational players is that when we buy rackets, they can be off in swing weight and balance due to the quality control. I completely understand from the racket manufacturer's point of view, now that I've seen the process, how difficult it is to get them matched by the gram or swing weight. It's quite like a hands-on process, so it's not that easy from a manufacturer point of view or financially feasible to make sure, the rackets are on spec always. That really puts more effort into getting that matching service from retailers like Tennis Warehouse or the shop that you prefer to shop from, that you get that racket spec'd up so you can get the specs you want, especially if you buy 3-4 different rackets. Usually the differences are not huge, but it can be enough to really give you a different experience. Completely understandable now that I've seen the process a bit up close, but still it's something worth paying a little bit extra for. when it comes to getting your match specs. And that's what the pro players get with the lead tape and all. No magic ingredients, no special materials. It's the same thing. It's made the same way, but it's just that it gets spec'd and customized matched to the pro player. Overall, I must say that the amount of work that gets into creating a racket from like the idea of the racket, especially if you're going to make a new model, to the whole planning phase, research and development that takes time, you know, how new materials work, how they interact, how a mold will change, all the testing that goes into these guys test the rackets, you know, and really put in a lot of heart, passion, time and everything into a new racket launch. Was really impressive to see, and you really feel the passion when you talk to them. And that was something that kind of was a relief, but also like made me happy to talk to these like-minded tennis nerds. They really have a strong passion for the process. These guys actually care a lot about the product. I'm sure it's the same in other brands as well, but it gave me a new perspective on the whole process, which was very useful, I think. One of my favorite visits of this trip was to the archive. I mean, the factory was amazing, but the archive, seeing all those models, old heads, and the other pro player frames, getting all these stories from Stefan, who had been in the industry for such a long time, it was just spectacular. I really hope to do a podcast with Stefan and Ralph, the R&D guys, and talk about the history in the company and the background to certain rackets and so on. Would be really fascinating. If you're interested in some racket history, you can check out my buddy James' 3 posts, 3 articles he's written for Tennis Nerd. I think they contain some fascinating stuff called Ahead of the Game. They're on tennisnerd.net, so check those out. I hope to be able to dive deeper into this topic. I didn't have the opportunity to be so engaged in meetings while also recording and doing everything. So I wanted to be 100% present, but I hope to do more podcast and recording stuff at some later date if these guys want me to. Does this mean that I'm going to join Team Head? No. Tennis Nerd is a work of passion, but also a work of objectivity. So I want to make sure I'm always kind of brand agnostic and that I keep analyzing rackets, strings, shoes, giving tips and tricks and producing content that are informative, passionate, but most of all objective as much as I can as one person. So I'm not going to be favorizing any brands for specific treatments. That's just the case. So I met really too many people over these 2 days to say thanks to everyone from Wolfgang, Max ×2, Martin, Antoine, Stefan, Ralph, Dennis, Julia, the whole team of Head. Big thanks for taking the time to meet me, to talk about rackets, and for the hospitality. That's all for this one. I hope you found some interesting stuff inside. I think things will pop out of my head from time to time from this trip. Check out my Patreon if you want to get the lowdown before everyone else. If you want to buy new rackets, check out Tennis Warehouse. My affiliates there is Tennis Warehouse Europe and Tennis Only. Use my links. I get a small commission at no extra cost to you. Have a nice day, and don't forget to play some tennis.